What's happening, guys?
In today's video, we're going to be showing you at home how to fit your very own composite cladding.
Like this one here.
We're going to show you how.
Jinx. So your first job, guys, when installing composite cladding is to install batons. And Phil's going to explain how.
So you've got your cladding. One of the first decisions you need to make is the direction you want to hang it. You can have it horizontally or you can have it vertical like so. The difference being is your batons. If you're going to have horizontal, so this way cladding, you need to put one lot of batons vertical on your wall like so. If you want vertical cladding, you need to counter batten, which basically means installing your verticals like so and then installing a second batten across your vertical battens, and what that does is keep the airflow behind your cladding. That's the only difference. We're going to be installing ours horizontally, so we're going to be using one, but just remember, if you do want to go vertical like that, you need to counter batten. You need to have two like so. So let's get on with battening.
Right, now it's time to install your battens. We're actually fixing this to a timber frame, so we can actually just nail this. If yours is made out of brick, you will have to drill and plug your battens to your wall.
So measuring for your battens is a really easy job. All you do is measure the space from top to bottom like so. And what you're going to do is we're going to leave a 10mm gap. If you're going down to a floor, we don't want the timber sitting on the floor because water will trap up inside. So I'll measure this now and Brad will cut one and we'll show you us installing it.
Right, now it's time to cut your battens, and what you will need to cut your battens is a skill saw, a chop saw or a hand saw. And what we're going to do is lock your tape measure on the end, get your measurement, ours is 2/350, and then we're just going to run our saw through this batten. And that's our first button cut.
Right, now that Brad's cut it to size, all you need to do is lift it up off the floor, that 10mm we cut it short, and either hammer and nail like so, or if you want to be a bit quicker, get yourself a nail gun and nail it in. Right, so we're going to go round and completely batten this part of the building out now. Remember a couple of things. You want battens on the edge of any openings like windows and doors, so we want them around the outside like so. And another thing to remember is you want no more than 600 between your battens. That is the maximum you want to be opening your battens up. So we're going to install ours now and we'll show you what it looks like.
Right, so we won't actually need a level on the outside of the building because Phil actually knows this is level, and you won't need it on the inside of the frame. But when we come onto the long straight down there, we will need to use a level so we know where to pin or screw our composite cladding. So now we're going to work above the doors, and what we're doing, we're putting little battens in like this, and what Phil's doing is marking out 400 centres just across the top. He's also measured the centre of the door, and the reason why is because this has got to have, well, it ain't got to have, but it's going to have a joint. So we're going to make sure that the joint is at the centre of the doors. Right at this stage, we're going to work our way along the side of our building. You should be doing the same at home if you're following along to this tutorial. Also, this is the part where you use a level to make sure your battens are straight. It makes it a lot easier when coming to fix the cladding on. So if you're following this guide along, you should have something that looks like this. And guess what? We're all ready to fix some composite cladding on.
Oh, exciting. Right, so now you've got your battens on and in place. There's a couple of checks you need to do and a couple of marks you need to put on before you can actually start attaching your composite cladding. One of those is to use an offcut. It's probably going to be your easiest way if you've not done a lot of cladding before. And you're going to mark the actual coverage, not the size, the part that you're going to see. We're going to go up our building and mark where each piece lands if you're starting on the floor. Remembering you want to be up off the floor 20mm minimum with this stuff. So you want a 20mm gap on the floor, and then we're going to mark around our openings and the top to make sure we don't end up with any tiny little slivers. We want some decent cuts to land at the top and around our windows and openings. So go around and check that. Once you're happy that you can start on a full piece, or maybe you've got to move it up, we're going to mark our battens, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our level or our laser level, depending on what you've got at home, and we're going to put a level line all the way around the bottom of the building, and that will be our starting point. So we're going to do that now, and then we'll show you us installing the first pieces. So before we start installing our cladding, we need to cut down our lengths to meet the closest batten that we've installed. So here's a full length now. If Brad comes up so it's easier for you to see, he's going to line it up on that corner, and lucky for us we've landed directly in the middle. But if you was to land like this, you need to cut your length back so that it lands in the centre like so, remembering that we're going to be leaving around 8mm expansion joints on these because they will expand and contract. So we're going to cut ours down, any that we need to, and you're going to cut yours down, and then we're going to start installing them.
So you need to grab yourself a pilot bit, and it needs to be 2mm bigger than the actual screw that you're putting in. Also, when you're screwing into these, you need to screw into the centre because that's where the screw head actually sinks in, so you can lock your next bit of cladding in. Right,
now that we've put our pilot holes in, we're going to pull our very first board up to that level line that we put in, and we're going to use suitable screws for your system. So these screws are suitable for outside. I'm going to put that in there. Remembering not to over tighten when it comes to composite because you can crack it. We're then going to go down to Brad's end and put another one in so it's in, and we're then going to check it.
So the reason why we put the pilot holes in is if you just directly screw straight into composite cladding, it actually expands, and when you won't have a problem when you're actually fixing it on, but when you come to clip the next board in, it don't lock into the system properly, and we know because we tried it. So you should always double check with a 6-foot level, even though we marked it before, just double check because the bottom row is the most important when starting installing this stuff. Right, now that we've got our first actual bit fixed to the wall, all nice and level, it's time to move on to cutting a section for the back of this building. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this flush with the bit we've installed because we know it's level. I'm going to hold it underneath, top and bottom, to make sure it's all nice. And then we're actually going to use a spacer to create the 8mm expansion gap that this composite cladding actually requires for every joint.
Right, now that we've got our first row in, and it's absolutely spot on, take time with this one, it's the most important, you need to make a decision. So you can either put your expansion joints all in one place and use a cover strip like this, which is colour coded, and that will sit over your expansions like that and allow the cladding to move back and forth with the different weathers. Or you can use the method that we're going to be using, and that is we're going to stagger our joints. So we're going to put a different cut there so the joints are offset, and we're going to use a colour match sealant to fill in the expansion joints. Right, so we've checked our measurements and we've decided we're going to have a cut here, a full board, and a cut at the back. So we're going to have 2 expansion joints in this strip. And then the quickest way to do it after that, if you're going to use this method or even the other method, is to pre-cut all of your cuts, pre-drill all of your holes, and then just come over and assemble it. Right, so now that we've got all of our pieces cut and pre-drilled, we're going to line our edge up with our cut so it's nice and flush. Get yourself a rubber mallet like this one. We're going to sit our cladding on top like so it's nice and flush, and then we're just going to tap the top like this, working our way along, and you'll see that that joint will close up like so. And once we're happy with this one, we'll fix that in with our fixings, and we'll do the next one and the next one, and we'll just start running the rows in. So let's chuck you on a time lapse, and I'll see you in a second.
Right, so that's the sidle in, and on this section here we're actually going to show you a lot more tips on how to get around the corner, get it level going across things, and also how to cut corners, install corners, and also how to scribe the top piece in. And Phil's going to explain how.
So one of the first tips we're going to be showing you is when you've got a large opening like this, you're going to struggle to get a level if you haven't got a laser level. So what you can actually do is use the window or door itself and make reference measurements. So if we measure from here or the top or the bottom or wherever you want to our level line here, we'll match it that side, so when you're looking at your building they're exactly the same around any openings that you may have. So there's a little tip for you. Right, so now we're going to measure our pieces for this little side section. And something to note, when we're measuring coming up to a corner, we're not going tight. So we're going to measure like this, and you see this large void here. The reason that's there is these boards will expand and contract. So if I show you when they're installed on the corner, it'll be like this, and then when the weather changes, they've got space to slide behind, all while looking pretty on the front. So let's get those measured and cut. Right, so we've cut all our pieces for this side section here. We've put our pilot holes in. So remember, you always have to pilot hole before you put your screws in. And our first one is going to go to that level line that we did at the very beginning of the video. And we're just referencing off this door to make sure they're equal both sides. So we're going to install that all while kneeling on this old man pad, because time's getting on, I'm getting old now. So that's the first one set exactly level. So now we can move on until we get to this little obstacle here, and we'll show you a quick tip of getting around things like that. Right, so now that we've come up with our composite cladding up to a wire, so this may be a light on your wall, a socket, we're going to now mark it, and I'm going to show you how to cut it. So with something like this, you could just literally slide it behind, line it up where it's going to sit on your wall, and mark the cable. So like so, pull it forward. We know that our cable is in that line there, so I've put my mark, and then all we do is we're sitting it to the side, lock it in like so, and we're just going to mark the height of it. So I'll show you those two marks. So we've got a mark here and a mark there. All we need to do now is join those two up and cut a hole. So because we're so close to the bottom of our board, we're just going to jigsaw the bottom. If it was, say, in the middle, you can drill your hole, have the cable disconnected by an electrician and feed it through. So we've transferred that mark over to this mark, and what we've ended up with a little square there. So remembering, with the composite cladding, everything can be cut with wood tools. So we've got ourselves a spade bit which is designed for wood. That will go straight through this. And if you haven't got one of these, you can use just a jigsaw, also with a wood blade in it. So let's cut that now. And that's how simple it is to cut around objects with composite cladding. Nice and easy. All we do then is line it up with our marks, and we just tap it down into place. And at the end, we're going to silicone the actual socket so no water can get in that hole or into the socket. And then we can just carry on up the wall and get to the next obstacle.
Right, so as you're working your way up the building, you have to make sure you keep that level, because as we come across the top, it could tip and you might not meet at the other end. And while we're in this video, we want to do a big shout out to EnviroBuild for supplying all the products in this video. So a big shout out to Aidan and Amber and the whole crew for getting this set up for us. We hope you're enjoying the video.
Right, so now we're up as high as we can come before we've got to go up and over our doors. So we're going to stop there, get the other side up, and I'm going to show you how to get up and over your doors and how to put your trims on, etc. So let's get that on and show you the next step. Right, so we've got both sides of our building up to level as far as we can go before we need to start trimming around our opening, which is for us is doors, maybe some windows for you. So best way to do this, our boards are not going to reach all the way across, so we've put it directly in the centre, but you can move your joints wherever you think best for you. And we're actually going to do our final cut, which sits at the very top first. I'm going to show you that, and then we're going to do the one that goes around the door. So we're going to take our pieces that we cut.
So we're actually going to temporarily fix this into position. We're not actually fixing this, we're just temporarily fixing it so we can actually mark it without it moving.
Right, so we've put that row in, but that row is actually the row above, but we're going to scribe it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we need to make a block that's going to give us our scribe distance, but when these clip in, they have to lift a certain amount to go in. So we want the thickness of the face, so you see I put a pencil mark there, plus the thickness of the clip on the back so that it can lift up and in. So when we put this final piece in, it needs to lift up and then in. So that's going to give us our space. So we'll cut this off here, and that will be our scribe block. So now we've got our block and we're just sliding it along the soffit, which is this thing here, and just running a pencil underneath, and that's going to give us our perfect cut. Now you could measure this, but this is definitely a more accurate measurement because the soffit's not guaranteed to be perfectly flat, which this one actually isn't. So this just takes into consideration any movement or bows. Right, now we've cut our fillers that are going to go at the very top. We're now going to put another row with the 2 cut pieces in above our door, and these are actually going here now. So we're just going to temporarily fix it in place, remembering to always do your pilot holes. And it's just a case of taking your pencil, we're going to mark the corner with our cladding, remembering that our corner comes past, so make sure we've got enough space here. And then after that, we're just going to take our tape measure and measure up to the top of our battens there from underside, like that. Check the measurement. For us, we've got 65 mil. We'll then do the same that side just to make sure 100% that it is the same, but it should be, because we want to be square to our doors. These should be level, same with you and your openings. And then we're just going to cut that off, either using jigsaw, skill saw, or even a table saw if you've got one.
Right, so we're going to take Phil's measurement of 65 mil, and then we're going to draw a straight line upwards, because then we know that's the direction we're going. And then we're going to mark 65 mil in the centre, and then 1 on the end, and then we're going to grab a straight edge to mark it, and then we'll put X's on it so we know that that's the piece that we've got to cut at, and we'll come back once we've cut it.
Right, so now we've got all our pieces cut, I'm going to show you a couple of things that we've picked up while using this system to make your installation much easier and a nicer finish. So because we've got this cup, this represents our little cup that comes up over the top here. On the back you've got 2 of these clips, one on the bottom, one on the top, and what that does is it gives it a steady base to sit on when you screw it in. But now we've cut ours off, so it's missing. So what we do with stuff like this, so above the door, is we've cut ourselves a batten that's flush with that clip.
You might be able to just purchase it.
That's going to sit on there, and when we install this, we've now got a solid fixing, and it's not going to move, because if we didn't have that, there's a chance it would flop in like that. But now we've got something sturdy to sit against. So there's a little tip. We're going to do that on the top and the bottom, because we're going to be cutting the top clip off and the bottom clip on the one below. So we'll install those and show you how they affect it.
Right, so we've placed them 2 pieces in situ, and what we're going to do is we're going to fix either side first, and then we're going to grab a level, and we're going to show you in a bit. We're going to level the front up before we actually fix it to our battens.
Right, so now we're finally ready to put our final piece, our little filler at the top. And if you look, we've put that little piece of timber we was talking about at the very top, and we've got one on the bottom, and that's going to take any tilt. So if you imagine we fix it here, it can just tilt, but now we've got this in, it's going to make it a solid base so we can screw straight into it. So we're just going to lift this up into position, and as you can see, we're short on the top, but that's what we want because we have to go up and down. And then we're just going to pull on it as much as we can until it goes in. Right, so once you get it in like so, we're going to be installing some colour-coded screws that EnviroBuild supply, so they're matched to the building. So we're going to drill into our batten, so we can drill anywhere now because we've got this batten here. We're going to drill with our pilot hole, and then we're going to put these in, and that's going to stop the top from ever tipping out. And then we'll be putting a silicone seal across the top.
Right, that's all the composite cladding on the building. Now it's time to fit some corners, and we're actually going to start with the external corner trims of the building, and then we'll move on to the ones around the frame. So Phil, how do we do that?
So it's just a case of measuring from the floor to the very top, but we're going to deduct 20 mil, so that is also up off the floor. Right, so as you can see, just hooks over the corner, push it up off the floor because we don't want it sat in any moisture, And then all we're going to do, as we did with the top, we're going to pilot hole some holes, and then we're going to use the colour coded screws every sort of 500. We're just going to put a screw in the corner, and we'll show you that done in a second. So as you can see, all I'm doing now, I'm just pulling it in tight to the building and running the colour coded screws through the holes that we pre-drilled. Just put it in, put it tight. And then we're going to do the same on the other side just to stop it moving anywhere. And then we're going to do the other one, and we're going to show you how to get around your openings. Right, so now we are ready to put our trims around our openings. That includes windows and doors, of course. We've got doors. So the thing we need to mark is the start of our mitres, because we're going to be mitering our corners. So I've got an off cut of one of the corners. We're going to sit it like so. We roll it up to our corner, and then I mark the top like so of where the edge of this is, and then we're going to do the same along the top. So we're going to sit along the top, and we're going to mark the bottom of where this hits. Those represent our mitres. That takes into consideration the thickness of the material, etc. So as that goes like that, so we'll show you how that works out. So we're going to mark both ends with this block.
So if you guys at home are watching this, just literally just follow along and copy exactly what Phil does, and you will get the perfect mitres.
And once you've used your block to make your marks, we're going to take our uprights. So this one can go here, and then we're going to lift them up, remembering we don't want them on the floor. So we're going to lift it up. We're going to take our pen, and we're going to transfer this mark over like so. Right, so that mark now goes all the way around. It's just to make it clear for yourself. So if you imagine that that is sat like that on your door, we need to come on the face, so if that's facing us, up like so, at 45 degrees. So we're going to hold it square on our saw and put a 45-degree cut right there, and I'm going to show you what that looks like after. There's our mark. It comes all the way around, right? So if you imagine that's our mark there, that represents the shortest part of our trim. So whatever we do, we want to cut bigger. So we want to cut away from our workpiece. So if I sit it along the fence like so, we're going to take our saw, we're going to set it to 45 degrees, and we're then going to cut away from the piece we want to keep. So if we're keeping that, we're cutting away from it. So if I sit that on there, and what you should end up with is there's our mark, and we've gone away from our mark, so we're bigger. Right, so if you follow those steps, when we put this into position and hold it there, you'll see we've got our line that we made. It's bigger, it goes up, and that's where it will sit. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the same on the other side, which is exactly the same process. We're going to fix these in exactly level. They must be level for the mitres to work.
So when you're fixing your first corner on, get your top screw in, and then you want to work your way down with a level. We've got a slight bow in ours, so we're going to work it out onto this straight level we have next to it. So you might want to get someone to help you, and we're going to slowly bow it out and make sure it's level, and then Phil's going to pop some screws in it once we get it perfectly level. Right, so that's the first corner all fixed on. So we're going to repeat the exact same process on that side, and then we'll show you how to join on to the top section and get this building wrapped up.
Right, so we've got our two edges on, and they're perfectly level. That is super important because the mitres won't line up. And then all we're going to do is hold our next piece up. I'm just going to mark the direction of cut because our mitre needs to come up there. We're going to be having a join. If you ain't got a join, then you're going to sit it across your two uprights and mark the two corners both sides and then cut away. But obviously we've got a join, so we're just going to do one side, cut the length there, do one, cut the length. That's the easiest way. So because I've got the direction there, if you flip it over and we do the same in here, now we know when we lay that flat on our saw, our 45 needs to come across there.
Right, to get this right, you have to line it up perfect, so the mitre's perfect here. And then we're going to come across and we're going to mark the centre of the doors because it will look better with a join there. We're going to cut that, and then we're going to repeat the process on the other side.
Right, now we've got this mitre in place and it's all fixed in level. we're just going to hold this mitre so it's nice and neat, come to the middle, put ourselves a mark to cut it straight, and that will be where our join is.
Right, so a big shout out to EnviroBuild. I hope you've been a massive help.
Remember, like, subscribe, comment.
Peace.